Hi, welcome to the last live stream of 2023. Welcome to the Camera Shake podcast Shakedown. It's almost 2024, so I thought that we're going to sit together and spend an hour or so just chewing the fat. And in order to do so, I've invited one of my friends and a friend of the show, of course, onto this live stream. It's none other than, well, give it up for none other than Sean Mithwaite. Here we are. Hey, Sean, man, how's it going?
How's it going? Not too bad. Yourself?
I'm very good.
Good.
Yeah, it's always fun to do these live streams because obviously you don't really know in advance what's going to happen, because it is live. So
Yeah. I was a bit apprehensive of doing a live thing in case one of the dogs does like a karate leap behind me in the background. You just don't know what they're going to do.
yeah, but that's the thing, you never know. It's a little bit of fun. I've done a few of those live streams, and I'm planning on doing more of those throughout 2024 because it's just a different thing. What I love is that sort of interaction between people who are watching it either on YouTube or on Facebook. And by the way, if you are watching on YouTube or Facebook, you can leave some comments, so you can directly communicate with both Sean and myself, which is awesome. So I always love seeing those comments coming in, and of course we'll respond to those as they come in. That being said, hang on, let me just make sure I can actually see what comes in when it comes in. Okay, there we go. Cool. So 2023, it was quite an eventful year. A lot of stuff has happened. It seems like more has happened in 2023 than has of the 5 years prior to that. Like AI being one of those things.
Yeah.
Like, if you think like just in the space of a year, how much has changed in the way that we work with AI integrated into Photoshop. I mean, that's, if you think about it, a year ago now, at the end of 2022, nobody would have thought that you can use AI inside of Photoshop.
That's crazy.
That would have just been a crazy idea.
No, it's absolutely crazy. I used it last night on a portrait, and before AI, I would have to hope that the other person's arm or elbow was in the right direction on the other side. I could just flip it around and copy it. Now I just did like sectioned it off and generate fill, and it gave me a perfect left-hand knee. So it was good. It worked really, really well.
Well, actually, to be honest with you, that was one of the things I was going to ask you. Was, I mean, with what you do, right? With your sort of unique style of headshot photography. Is that useful to you? Like, do you use that generative fill tool at all, or in what way would you use it?
Sometimes, but before I used to use content aware fill if I ever wanted to extend the backdrop, just make it from portrait to landscape. But sometimes I did on a picture yesterday where I shot outside and there's paving stones, and I tried it on that and it worked fine. It's not something I really want to incorporate fully into my working process, but it's good to have. It's definitely good to have to be able to use it if you need it. I'm just still not totally fully aware of what it can actually do for me. I know it can do a lot of good stuff that I've seen, but again, I want to sort of rely on in-camera work, and if there's a pimple or so, I can just remove that in Lightroom or Photoshop. But other than that, it's going to be fun to play around with it to see what I can get out of it and see what it can do for me. If it's any use to me, I'll definitely use it. If not, I said it's good just to have on standby. So
yeah, there's sort of things, I started using it a lot more. Like Portrait Pro, for instance, is something I use more for like volume things, because it's just a quicker process than like having to hand retouch everything. It just now seems like, why did I ever do that?
Exactly. What I just realized in what do you call it, Lightroom, you can actually now, what I figured out, I'm not sure if you could do it before, but I just figured out that you can actually copy layers, and it will post onto something of the hands like this here in one shot, post on another shot, then it'll actually post that onto the chain shot with all of the alterations already done, so you don't have to do every single picture individually. So for me, that has been a real big game changer for me, because normally a case of I just do like shadows, contrast, highlights, copy paste that across all of them, then go and do the ones individually, and that took a long time. But now I can do that in batches, so it saves a lot of time.
I've noticed that too. That's something definitely I've started using as well. Like these almost like AI filters, if you want to call it that.
Yeah, exactly.
That's really great.
Exactly.
Like you set up the skin or whatever in the way that you want it, and then you just, or eyes or whatever it is, and then you just apply to like a whole bunch.
It's amazing.
It's fantastic.
It's really, really good. Yeah. Oh yeah, it does. I mean, I normally sort of spend 10, 15 seconds on each individual picture. Now I just have to do one, copy and paste the exposure shadows. Now I copy the actual layers, and that changes it for me. So it's just like, it just makes my work process so much faster and easier, more productive.
It's nuts. And then, you know, when you married it up with something like, for instance, Portrait Pro, there are certain aspects of Portrait Pro that I really love, and others that I don't think work that terribly well for me. Like hair doesn't look great.
No,
I just don't like that. The way it kind of treats hair always looks weird. Skin, actually, it can do a fairly decent job in like some very basic.
Passable.
Yeah, passable. If it's a volume thing, do you know what I mean? It's like, where you don't have to go full on into like full on, skin retouching or something. Super awesome. But what I really like is the kind of face reshape function, because I would say 99 times out of 100, it actually creates a better looking result. You know?
Oh, really?
Yeah, and it really does.
Oh, fantastic.
I think it's probably because it makes me look better. I think.
If I can do anything to make me look better, then all even better themselves. So.
Yeah, exactly. So that's actually, it's really good. And like I said, it's super quick. And you can kind of set it up. I mean, you can either set it up so that, you just basically toggle on and off the processes that you want, like eyes or whatever. And to be honest, eyes in Portrait Pro actually works quite well. Again, if it's for something like a volume thing where you got 10 shots, 20 shots, 50 shots or whatever.
Yeah.
It does a pretty decent job on eyes. I don't think it's necessarily as detailed as if you really went in there and really hand retouched it. But again, for volume work, it's not really relevant, right?
Yeah,
and I don't know, a quick like social media retouch for
exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's quite good for like people's profile headshots for social media. Nothing too in depth and nothing too. I'm not going to say not too serious, because it's all serious, but at the same time, you want to be able to do it quickly, and and again, you're going to know yourself. If it doesn't look good, you're not going to supply the image. It's as simple as that. But if it does good, why not?
And also, like I said, for stupid selfies.
Yeah, exactly.
But the thing is, like, the cool thing is, it's like I said, you just toggle on and off whatever you want to use, and it basically use the same settings unless you change anything on the next image. So you just keep going through it, and it just.
You said it was Portrait Pro, did you say? Yeah.
Yeah, it's Portrait Pro. It works really well for what it is. This isn't a high-end retouching tool, I don't think, for the sort of super high-end work.
Yeah.
But for your general run-of-the-mill, especially for volume work, it works really well. I think that's a very important distinction to make. It's like, different horses for different courses. Like, what is
exactly
that you want to do? There's a very interesting conversation I had actually in one of the episodes this year with Lisa Carney, where we're talking about exactly that. Like, how is AI going to impact the job of a retoucher? Like, is it still going to be a job, in a couple of years' time? And her point was really interesting, and of course totally true, and makes complete sense, because she said, on the it really depends on what level of work you're looking at. Like the top end, clearly you need bespoke, retouching and skill, and and then also, of course, when you work with a client, an art director or something, they ask you to go back on something and like change something. If you just let AI do the whole thing, there's really nowhere you can go back to. But if you've got all your layers in Photoshop, for example, you can dive in there and change like one little thing.
That's very true. That's very true.
It makes perfect.
Yeah, I mean,
sense.
you're not going to use it for Vogue or anything like that. Basically.
No, exactly. That's exactly what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah.
But for like a run of the mill, like quick thing that really enhances the image is absolutely totally awesome. Yeah.
That sounds good.
I use it a little bit. There's also there's another version. I can't remember whether it's like whether you have to pay more for it or what the deal is, where you can actually
It's
batch
always going to be the way.
process. Yeah, it's kind of the thing like where you batch process like 50 shots or something, and you just because the way I do it is, and it still saves me time. I basically just run each individual image through it, which takes a few seconds, and then move on and upload the next one. But you could make that a lot more efficient if you weren't as stingy as me and you actually paid.
Me too.
Yeah. Well, see, this is the thing. You're from Scotland, and I think anecdotally, Scottish people are said to be stingy. I'm from the southwest of Germany, and we have exactly the same stereotype.
Brother from a different mother.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. The Swabians, southwest of Germany, are said to be very stingy. And,
really?
It's partially true.
Yeah, I think it's the same as well. I mean, I did go and upgrade to the WeTransfer Pro, so that allows me to transfer up to 20 gigs. It used to be a case of it just gave me like a limit of 2 gigs per each transfer. So I had a job that was 20 gigs. I'd have to do 10 different transfers. So I'd have to set up the computer and wait for it to go through, and it was very time consuming. So for me, that was a time saver. So I felt, okay, that's worth getting the Pro version. So it's definitely worth it, and it is a bit like a storage unit as well. I can have transfers up there up to a year, so it's quite good.
Yeah, very cool. We've just had our first comment. Daniel Oberdanner, listening or watching all the way from Switzerland. Hey Daniel, how's it going? I hope you're having a good time. Good Christmas, and we're almost in 2024. So more exciting things to come.
Yeah, getting there.
Exactly. Do you have? Are you completely done now, or is?
Yeah, I'm done now. I've had a few people confirming shoots in January, but it used to be a case of people would stop shooting around the end of October. Then I'll get my first job around beginning of February, so it'd be 3 or 4 months without any work. But now it's a case of people are booking, so it makes me feel a bit more secure that people aren't just going to forget about me. So but at the moment everything's been packed away and dusted off and charged up and memory cards formatted for the new year. So
it's
gonna be
awesome.
good.
Well, so since we're celebrating 2023, I want to know, for anybody listening or watching because you can't really just listen to this, what were your highlights of 2023? And also, let me know if you're watching on Facebook or on YouTube. That's always interesting for me to know. But what were your highlights of 2023? Put it in the comments. It'd be super interesting. But Sean, what was your photographic highlight of 2023?
Oh God. I think for me, I've done quite a lot of work for a food hall magazine in Stockholm. So I managed to get 2 front covers that are photographs that I have taken. Those are a group of very talented performers, actors, and singers. So I managed to shoot them and have that on the front cover. So anytime I get a front cover or anything in the magazine itself, I'm super excited. But more so, well, not more so, I'd say, but especially when I get an image actually on the front cover, it's actually quite good. But I think as far as the highlight goes, for me, is that I just feel that I'm developing more and more as a photographer. I've always sort of been a people person, and I just feel that's growing. So I think for me, the more in tune I can get with the people that I shoot, the more the better the session will be, and the more images that they'll get that will hopefully get them hand-hunted for a role. So, but yeah.
Fantastic. Cool. Well, it's been, I don't know, 2023 was such a busy year. There's been so much that's been going on. I don't even know. I mean, my first trip in 2023 actually was to meet up with you in Stockholm. I
It
think that
was
was,
indeed.
if I remember, yeah, if I remember correctly, that was my first trip in 2023. So that was super fun. Stockholm, man, what a
Yeah,
city, is phenomenal.
it is quite impressive. But yeah, it was good for you to come over and see. I mean, hopefully, I can get to come over to the UK and see you over. I haven't been over to the UK now for a year and a half now, I think it is. So it would be good to come back to the UK for more fun things than other going to funerals. So it should be a lot better that time next time round.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It felt good to travel a little bit in 2023. I have to admit, after the pandemic and all that kind of stuff, several bouts of COVID, um, and all of that kind of jazz. So it's been good to get out and travel, and especially exploring Scandinavia. I have to say, I really enjoyed that this year.
That's right, because you went up to Norway, didn't you, to do the Viking shoot?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so Sweden was my first foray into Scandinavia, and then
Yeah,
the funny thing is, so my wife and I, we got to Sweden, and I thought, oh, first of all, I realized that with my knowledge of German, I could actually pretty much read all the street signs. Okay,
yeah,
and so it occurred to me that maybe Swedish might not actually be that far removed from German. So maybe, if I gave it a shot, maybe you could actually learn a little bit of Swedish. And so that's what I did. So on that trip, I started my
yeah.
Duolingo,
Oh, fantastic.
my Duolingo, whatever you call it, streak
Yeah,
craziness.
exactly.
And I've kept the streak going since then. So I'm now at like, was
Oh,
it 200?
fantastic.
Yeah, 216 days or something.
Yeah,
So yeah,
yeah. No, that's
it's been
really,
good.
really good. I mean, I think once you get a grip of Swedish, not be able to understand Norwegian's not going to be too far at all either. So, I mean,
So
I
I
don't
can't.
speak.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
mean, I
you know
don't.
what I figured. I figured
Yeah,
that,
yeah. I mean, I don't
but
speak fluent Swedish, but I understand Swedish a lot, and I obviously know a lot of Swedish that I can actually understand Norwegian, some Danish, but that's quite a harsh language for me to understand. So, but
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, Swedish is an interesting thing. I thought if I learn Swedish, then at least because Norwegian and Swedish are sort of they're mutually intelligible to a
yeah,
degree. Meaning like a Swedish person can understand a Norwegian person, they might sound a bit weird, and vice versa. Broadly speaking.
yeah,
So I kind of
yeah,
figured, since I really like the sound of Swedish, I learned that, and then at least I can communicate a tiny little bit in Norway, and that's yeah, it's worked to
yeah.
a degree.
No, it does. I mean, I think that the more you sort of stick to major cities like Stockholm or Oslo, they do learn English from a very early age. I think it might be 6 or 7 years old they learn English from.
Yeah,
So I mean, I have a neighbor who's mid 80s, and he speaks better English than most English people. So,
yeah. I mean that's
but
that's the thing. Of course, it's so easy to get around in Scandinavia generally because everybody's
yeah,
English is so perfect,
yeah,
which is
yeah.
which is superb. But I always find it's fun to just try the local language a little bit, especially
Yeah, it's,
Swedish.
it's fun. Yeah, I mean, I think it's like most countries that they like to see that you're making a bit of an effort. If they see you making a bit of an effort, it's all good.
Yeah, well, exactly. And it's just I just think it's fun. And when people answer back to me, it was funny. So I would go to a shop, for example, I would buy something, and I would attempt to communicate with the cashier or something, in Swedish, and they would totally understand what I'm saying. But when they
Yeah.
were answering back in Norwegian, I'm like, okay,
Say again.
yeah, no idea. Do you
So
speak
I'm gonna
English?
be really smart here and speak Norwegian.
Yeah,
What now?
yeah. Pratar du engelska? Yeah. Okay, perfect. Let's go. So yeah, it was a funny thing. That was a cool trip, actually. I have to say that was definitely overall. I would say,
Yeah,
overall, that trip to Norway was my favorite. My favorite thing that happened in 2023. That was really mind blowing.
yeah. I
You
can
know,
imagine it.
I mean, just seeing the Northern Lights for the first time because I'd never seen them before. That absolutely, totally, completely, and utterly blew my mind. Um,
Yeah, I mean, when the first time I saw was up in Luleå, so way up north in Sweden, and first of all, I didn't realize that you couldn't see it without looking through a camera or back of your mobile phone. Normally, it just looks like grey clouds, but until you look through your mobile phone, then you see this really bright green come through it. It's quite freaky for the first time. It's not scary, but it's just like, what is going on? You can't really
surreal.
take it in. Yeah, exactly.
You really can't take it in. It's a weird experience because it's so far outside of your experience. Generally speaking,
Yeah.
if you've grown up in the UK or in Central Europe or wherever. So and you really your brain just can't really compute that that's real, because you want to say, yeah, it's just it's a special effect or something. And I remember, when I got up to Lofoten, I arrived a day or two before our clients arrived. And so the first night, just flown in, Dave Williams took me out for a little kind of a recce trip, right? He goes like, hey, let's go out tonight. I'm going to show you the Northern Lights. And so we were driving around for a couple of hours, and it was, the weather was, on that first night, actually, the weather was really quite good. There were some clouds, but not too much. But, we kept driving, and eventually, Dave looked out the windscreen. He goes like, okay, it's happening. Can you see it? And I'm looking up and I'm thinking, I can't see anything. Like, there's nothing there. It's like, I can see stars.
Like wiping your window.
Yeah, it's, and then I'm thinking, maybe it's a thing that you can only see. Maybe it's the camera that does it. Maybe it's the camera that records it. Maybe you can't see it with
it's
bare eye,
strange. It's strange either way.
Yeah, and then he stopped. We got out of the car. He goes, oh, you can't see it. Can you see the green? And I'm like, oh, I can't see. There's no, I don't know. It's like, maybe it's a little bit greenish or something. I don't know. It's like, how green is it supposed to be,
Yeah.
And I'm looking up and I'm thinking, is it like, I don't know, is it purple or, I don't know.
For me, it's just it's like a cloud. For me, that's what I saw, was like a cloud.
So what happened was, I was just about to get back in the car. I had one foot in the car.
Yeah.
And I look up and it all exploded. It just went nuts. And it just went bang. And I'm saying,
incredible.
What the hell? And it's this thing, where, and this is the thing I've learned as part of the process, because Dave did. The great thing for everybody, including myself. I mean, I was there to basically teach portrait photography. But one of the things that we did at the very beginning of the workshop was we did some master classes, and Dave's first master class was Aurora mechanics. So basically, where he taught us what the Aurora is, how it actually works, or basically what we know about how it works. And it gave us a really good insight into all of the different things that have to come together for it to actually be visible. So there's a lot of science. The science behind it and the weather implications and stuff like that. And the thing that was really fascinating was how many data points he follows. Like, there's literally hundreds of data points that he follows all the time. That's probably why he's one of the best, if not the best, Aurora hunter, whatever you want to call it, in the world. It's the man's a computational machine.
Computer on legs.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, he's got like goodness how many apps, and then he checks like the whatever, the solar activity and the flare thing and whatever, and then some other like also different factors, and you just go. You look at all these graphs, and he goes like, yeah, it's going to be happen at 2:15 a.m. And it's going to be there, and you go, how do you know that? That's like 8 hours from now, and he goes, I'm telling you, it's going to be there. That's why it's going to be happening. And then of course the other thing is, depending on the weather, like let's say you have cloud coverage. You then have to take into account where the hole in the cloud is going to be. So you got to bring the two things together. And I mean, through that whole trip, I could not tell you how fascinating it was that we'd have dinner, right? And at the end of dinner, he'd be like, guys, 20 minutes, we're moving out because there's a chance of seeing the Northern Lights 2.5 hours from here, further north. And then we're going to pile in a van now and we're going, And it was just amazing to see how all of that came together. I mean, we get to this place, it was pitch black, right? It's like 2:00 in the morning. And we get out the van and we look up and there's like, it's all clouds. Can't see any stars, And you're like, well, okay, so the Aurora might be happening, but you won't be able to see it because it's behind the cloud cover.
Behind the clouds, yeah.
And then he goes like, no, there's going to be a hole in the cloud, like literally in exactly 5 minutes. We'd look up and like 5 minutes later, the clouds part and there it is. And you go, huh? How the heck could you predict that? That's nuts.
No, that's a bit strange.
Yeah,
You
it's
know,
it really
that's a bit
is.
supernatural.
Yeah, completely. But of course, from an experience point of view, it was amazing. It's sometimes it was like a haze, like you said, it's almost like a cloud,
Yeah.
and it was just green, or then it would like move into purple and red. But it's like a haze. It's when the aurora is very diffused, but then something happens and it all comes together into like a really focused streak.
Yeah.
And then it just starts. It all goes off. And it's just incredible. Like it's moving.
Bit of a light show going on. Yeah.
Yeah, and you think it's alive. It's
Yeah.
It's just not.
I think you do have the possibility to see it in Stockholm. Some people have posted it when I obviously went to bed. People posted from the night before, and I was like, "Why am I never awake to see this stuff here?" And this is like 9-10 o'clock at night, So it does happen down here, but it happens obviously a lot more the further up north you go. So, but it's definitely fascinating to see. It's fascinating.
It's mind blowing. It's mind blowing. Daniel's just saying, "Oh yes, I have to visit Dave Williams also in Lofoten." Yes, you do. Absolutely, 100%. It's one of the most beautiful places I have ever been to. It's absolutely stunning.
Do you have any more of these events coming up in Norway? Do you have one in 24 or?
Yes, so there will be. So new dates will be announced very shortly. So there will be new stuff coming up in 2024.
Okay.
So it's always a matter of timing because there's sort of an aurora season, if you want to call it that. So it's typically, according to Dave, it all starts kicking off from late August, early September, something like that.
Right.
Until about March, April. It just depends on how intense it is. So you got to make sure that you're like in that window.
Exactly. To be able to catch it. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a number of different considerations when it comes to dates and stuff. But yeah, there's new stuff happening. Obviously, I mean, Dave's living up there, so he's there all the time.
Oh, right.
So he's like
hard life.
There. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So he's ditched the van, and he's.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So the van life has come to an end.
He must enjoy. How long has he been in Norway for? Has it been quite a while? He's been there for now, or?
So he permanently moved up there. I want to say August or July. June, July, August of last year. 2023 this year. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was the final trip in a van was to move up there, and then
fantastic.
Then it had literally come to its end.
Seen better days.
Yeah. It's I mean, it's funny. I found that super interesting because I've been following I've known Dave since before he started the whole van thing.
Right.
And so, I met the van at the very beginning when he just built it and he was testing it, and we met in Wales in 20, was that? I think it would have been 2020, I guess.
Oh, really?
I'm pretty sure. Yeah. So it must have been. Yeah, we met in we met in Wales. We made a Camera Shake podcast episode about that actually. We met in Wales in the prairie in some forest. And we thought like, oh, it'd be cool if we spend a night there, like we camp and we just make an episode around the van.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. And it was super interesting to see because he kitted out the van and everything, but he was still sort of testing out all the different systems and everything.
Yeah.
Just to see
how it actually works.
Yeah, whether it actually worked in real life, and then also what it's like living in the van. That's the other thing. That's a major thing. And
was it comfortable?
Yeah, actually, it really was. Yeah, he had literally had a double bed in there. And
oh, really?
Yeah, he had a double bed and a kitchen, and like a little couch bit, like a seating area, and a little table, in the back. Yeah, and there's like there was like a heater, like a diesel heater in there, I think, and of course he had a solar panel on the roof, so he was making his own energy. Which basically allowed him to be completely self-sufficient. And I think, broadly speaking, it all worked out fine. I think I mean, personally, I think I could definitely do that for a period. I don't know if I could do that for 3 years.
That's quite hardcore. That's very dedicated to do that.
Yeah. So, personally, that's just, yeah, that's just the thing. It's like, yeah, I could do I could go to like an expedition, a couple of months for sure.
Yeah,
100%. Yeah, I could
not
definitely
a
do that.
problem. Yeah, 3 years. That's a long expedition.
Yeah, that's, and then of course when he did, the first time he went to do, which he called Due North 1, like the first season, he went all the way up to like the north of Sweden, Lapland,
Right.
I think the Fortin Islands as well, the northern Norway, Arctic Circle, and all the rest of it. And, he was there in the winter, it was like minus 40 degrees centigrade, which for the American viewers amongst us, zero idea what that is in freedom units, but it's very, very, very cold.
Yeah, yeah.
But, and living in a van, it was insulated and everything, but of course, what are you going to do? Minus 40 degrees? I don't think that's much you could do.
No.
So,
Pray.
yeah. Pray, exactly. And I think so. I think that there were probably a few moments that were a bit hairy, but overall, it was it seemed like a fun thing. Yeah. So then when he moved up to the Lofoten Islands, he basically decided to make that his base, and it was very interesting because I remember the first ever. Actually, no, it was the second. So the second interview I've done with him when we were in Wales, we were generally talking about some future plans, and he basically, one of the things he said is like, he'll take that as an opportunity to basically find the place where he'll want to put down roots, and then that's basically what he did. So he obviously came.
That's where he chose then, yeah.
Yeah.
Is that quite a central place for him to be to get to a place where he needs to be? Then is it?
It's, I think, from a Northern Lights perspective, the Lofoten Islands are probably on the planet one of, if not the best place to be for a number of reasons, as I've learned since then. One is it's inside the Arctic Circle. So if you imagine, a lot of people like to go to Iceland to see the Northern Lights. And of course you can see them there, no problem. But if just imagine the northernmost tip of Iceland is just about touching the Arctic Circle. The Lofoten Islands are 200 miles or something further north than that.
Oh, really?
So you're actually inside of what's called the Aurora Oval, which basically means that when you see the Northern Lights, they don't only occur in the northern sky; they're all around you. So they're in the southern sky and the western sky, in the east, everywhere.
That's incredible.
So because you're this far north, there was literally, we went to one of the beaches there, and I remember like I'm looking out to see, and Dave comes up behind me and he goes like, "Look, if you took a boat and you just went out in a straight line from this beach, the next piece of land you'd hit be the North Pole."
Oh, really? Oh my God.
So,
that's quite inside the Arctic Circle then.
Yeah, and it's so as a consequence. So that's one thing. The other thing though is that the Lofoten Islands are basically, it's really part of a massive mountain range, and it's granite, and so granite contains a lot of iron ore, and so what it literally does is it literally attracts, for the lack of a better word, it literally attracts the Northern Lights. So it really is a superb place on Earth to be, to see them.
Oh, cool. That's I mean, I would like to see it again, but when I was up there, it was for work. It wasn't necessary to see the Northern Lights, but I wouldn't mind seeing them, a dedicated visit to see them, just to see them, take it all in, fully take it all in, actually what it is and what it does and how it looks, because it's a bit like a giant kaleidoscope, but in green, as you said, greens and purples. It's a sight to be seen. It's very hard to describe.
Yeah, it's very difficult. It's difficult to actually describe to people if they haven't seen it themselves what the impact is. Yes, I mean you see it on photos and in documentaries and stuff, but I wasn't prepared for how intense it was, and I wasn't prepared for how fast they move. That's the other thing.
Yeah.
Because usually when you see them in a photo, they're static.
Yeah.
But I also wasn't prepared for how it made me feel. that was I mean, I remember the first night we went out, you know, I mean, I literally forgot to push the shutter button because
Oh,
you're looking
really?
up. Yeah. And you're just so,
It's like a bit of a trance.
yeah, completely. Yeah. It's like, you think you're on drugs, but you're not. It's just staring around. You go, what? I don't know what's going
It's like,
on. Yeah. complete stuff. And then, before you know it, it's the other thing, you try and get your camera ready, to take an image. And then you look up and it's like a massive streak. You get your camera ready. You're in the pitch black. It takes a little while, right? Then when you're ready to shoot, you look up and the thing's gone. And you go like,
yeah.
damn. And then, of course, somebody goes like, oh, look behind you. And you look behind you. It's all moved to behind your back where you can't see it.
Yes.
And it's all happening. Oh, man, it's just, it was such a fun opportunity.
Yeah.
Let's see. Daniel's just saying, Dave visited me here in Zurich. The van was parked in my street. That was much fun. Yes, I have to agree. I've had I had Dave's van parked in front of my house on a few occasions, and that was super fun. Definitely.
Oh, fantastic. Cool. Fantastic.
Absolutely. Yeah. So yeah, that was, I think, as far as things in 2023 generally were concerned, that was definitely one of my favorite moments. The only thing was, unfortunately, whilst I was in the Lofoten Islands, none other than David Bergman put me on to rum and coke. That's
Rum and coke. Oh my god. It can be quite addictive though. It's a nice taste. I've got a bit of sweet tooth when I was in London. Rum, dark rum, was it? Yeah, dark rum and coke. I was like, and lots of ice. I was like, yeah, next one.
Yeah, it's very difficult. It's very difficult. I mean, it's I've learned, because it's a funny thing. I was like, so we were staying at this place called Svinojo Rober, which is like a little resort that consists of lots of traditional red little fishing huts, and it's basically a sort of hotel resort. Honestly, it's really, really good, very comfortable, and really great restaurant there as well. Fantastic place, and a really nice little bar, right? And so we would hang out, have a few drinks in the evening and whatnot, and at some point, David Bergman were like, oh, what are you drinking? I'm like, oh, I'm not sure. And he goes like, oh, I usually have rum and coke. And I'm like, oh, I'll give that a shot. Okay, fine. Why not? And then immediately I'm like, oh God, this is too good.
First sip, like, I'm done.
That's it. That's me done now. And then of course, when I came back to the UK, I was like, I got some rum and it was never really the same, and then I thought, wait a minute. I actually got to know the guy who works behind the bar. I'll just text him and ask him how they make it.
So you got the secret recipe, the actual portions of the drink that goes into it.
It's not so much. I mean, it's not so much secret. It's basically just knowing which rum they use. They just use was it Captain Morgan or something? Spiced.
Captain Morgan spiced. Yeah.
Yeah, very good. Works really well, and there it is. It's great.
He's still doing it.
I'm still doing it. Yeah, 100%.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it's super fun. I'm not a big drinker, not at all, but it's a little vice, I think.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's just when you try and drink rum and coke whilst trying to shoot the Northern Lights, that's when you've got problems. It's behind you. No, it's not.
Yeah, so that was actually one of the things. I mean, we'd be like literally, we'd almost like retired for the night, but of course you never really know when stuff's kicking off. It's kicking off, and because Dave was literally constantly 24/7 checking the situation. It could be like we'd be at the bar or something, and he'd be like, okay, if we leave in 15 minutes, it's an hour and a half drive. We can get to this beach or this mountain or whatever, and it's all going to be kicking off there. So, and of course, that's why we were there,
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like you drop everything, camera gear's basically in a go bag, is always ready.
Yeah.
And you just pile in the van and off we went, and that was it. And it was, but as a consequence, of course, it was an amazing experience because we did get to see the Northern Lights many times whilst we were there. I think it's one of these things. If you're in a particular location and you wait for them to come to you, it's much more difficult. If you've got somebody who knows when they're going to be and where they're going to be, then it's much easier.
Yeah, no. How many people went on the actual the trip, the expedition that you did?
How many people? It's 5 people. Was it something like that? Yeah, something like that in total. So
Right.
it's a very small group. It's very sort of it's very exclusive if you want to use that word. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
but it's actually, you know, the thing is, uh, it's a much better experience for everyone when it's a small group. Um,
Absolutely.
you know, I know a lot of, you know, photography workshops or something where you've got 20 people or 30 people or something in a group, and depending on what it is, that can work. But I think with something like that, um,
The
it's
smaller group, the better.
yeah, because
Yeah.
and I'm not kidding. It's actually really difficult to photograph the Northern Lights. Certainly, I've said this before on a podcast. For me, this is
Mm.
the most difficult thing I've ever photographed,
Oh,
purely from a
really?
technical perspective. Yeah, and it's, you
Yeah.
know, and I wasn't really prepared for that, to be honest with you. Um, one of the most difficult aspects of shooting the Northern Lights is that you're literally operating in the pitch black. Like, first of all, operating your camera in the pitch black, that's one thing. But I tell you, like, how do you focus on anything in the pitch black? I mean, there's nothing to focus on, you know,
No,
potentially.
there's really not.
Um, and you know, I remember the first night we got back, you know, I checked all my images on the computer afterwards, and literally 90% were out of focus.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, and then immediately
What
be
what
like,
what
well,
what do you set? Do you set the focus to an infinity or
so
like
it really it
16 or
depends, because with some lenses, you know, you go to infinity, then you got to roll back a little bit,
yeah, yeah.
and then of course you would have to tape them down, and it's really complicated. Typically, you want to find in an ideal situation, you want to find some kind of light source in the distance, like a star, for example.
Yeah.
Or if you, depending on where you are, of course, the Lofoten Islands is basically an, I never know how to pronounce this word, an archipelago or something, whatever it is, a collection,
Archipelago.
archipelago. That's it. There
Yeah,
you heard,
yeah.
you heard Sean say it right. Um, archipelago. Yeah. I use the
How did
Italian
that
term, no?
one?
Um, so I can't even remember how did you pronounce it?
Archipelago.
Archipelago. Yeah, it's an
Yeah,
archipelago
yeah,
of islands, right? And
yeah,
so
yeah,
sometimes, when, you know, let's say you're on one island and you look across the water and you can see the other islands, there might be a little village or something, or even just a building, and they might have their
yeah.
lights on. You could potentially focus on that, and
Right.
that'll work, right? But
Okay.
there were occasions where, you know, you're out, like, out totally in the prairie and there's nothing, and then,
Mm.
you know, and if it's cloudy as well, you don't even see the stars. And then of course, you know, with the mountains, I mean, these mountains are huge. I mean, they're literally like, I mean, 3,000 feet tall mountains,
Right.
something like
Right.
huge mountains. So, which basically means, you look one way and you look straight at the mountain, you can't see anything. It's completely black because all you see is nothing, you know, granite
Yeah.
nothingness.
No,
So
no.
focusing is a real issue. That's very difficult.
Hmm.
And that being said, I'm actually positively surprised. So I took the Nikon Z6 II with
Right.
me, and I have to say, I'm actually really positively surprised how that machine worked in the dark. I mean, that autofocus system, I know a lot of people always like carbon about, Nikon's autofocus system is not as good as Sony, so it's definitely not as good as Canon. But, you know, whatever. I have to say, I was in a group with lots of people who shot Canon, and they had more problems focusing in the dark than I had. That's just,
Oh, really?
just saying. This is
Just
like
saying.
real life experience. Just saying. Yeah, exactly. You know, and of course, you know, those, you know, I at no point did I walk around going like, yeah, I shot Nikon. It's working.
Better than
No,
your
but, you know,
Canon.
yeah. But
And she said it's horses for courses, though. So,
yeah, but that's it. That's it. Exactly. Exactly.
and I
So
know I think from the first version, I think the Mark II, I think the autofocus was sort of worked on quite. That was boosted quite a lot. I think people
yeah,
had issues with that. So,
yeah, yeah. You're absolutely right. I did a shoot at some point in 2023, and I had a Z6 first generation and a Z6 II, both on the same shoot. It was a video shoot,
right,
and it really was a difference, like day and night. It really
9
was
day difference. Yeah,
day and
yeah,
night. Yeah, I
yeah.
mean, it was so different. in many respects, the focus being one. And I'm not saying, I mean, the Z6 II especially not, but of course, if you look at a Z8 or the Z9, I hired a couple of Z9s at some point this year as well to shoot some stuff at the Albert Hall, and I have to say that again completely blows the Z6 II out of the water. The autofocus on that is blooming incredible. It's
amazing, absolutely amazing.
Ballgame. I particularly like the video autofocus on that. It just goes, you're focusing on something in the foreground, and then you move it to the background. It just goes whoop, whoop, whoop,
straight away. None of this hunting for it.
No hunting, no breathing, and actually it did it in a very sort of cinematic way as well. It wasn't like, it wasn't like it didn't look
whiplash.
Bad. It looked good. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I think cinematic is a good way to describe that, actually.
Yeah, so it worked. But anyway, for my intents and purposes, out there in the dark, I was really happy with how the Nikon performed. It did really well. I had zero issues. It held up really well against the weather as well. So
how did I take it worked well in the cold then as well, right? How did the battery life affect with the cold? Did that zap the battery's life quite badly?
So when we were there, imagine we were there in the end of September, beginning of October, the back end of September, and it was considerably colder than it was here, but it wasn't like Arctic freezing. So it was probably in centigrade, it was about 6 degrees, something like that.
Okay.
So at that point, there was really no problem with the batteries at all. I know anecdotally, from obviously having had this conversation with Dave, for example, when you go there in January, February time when it's really flipping cold, minus 21, whatever, then it's a really good idea to keep your batteries on your body, like inside of your Parker, maybe something like that, in inside pocket, just to keep them at kind of body temperature, because they won't last as long. That's the other thing. When you put them in, like I say, if you're doing a time lapse or something, those batteries are shot in no time at all.
Yeah, they just go really quickly.
Yeah, so
I normally put mine inside a pocket. If I have like cargo pants on, I will put the batteries inside a glove and put, as you said, put it in on my inside pocket. You do have like a massive bulge in your pocket, but it does mean you can stay out longer with batteries without dying 2 seconds flat. So.
Well, exactly, and that's the thing. You just need to remember that you need to take more batteries than you'd ordinarily think you'd need. Instead of like, if I normally get through a shoot on like 2 batteries, I probably need 6. For the same amount. And then I just need to make sure that they kept warm for the most part.
Exactly. You just use like the pocket warmers.
Yeah, and then of course, I mean, the other thing is, there's a certain point where again, I know anecdotally that it's just the electronics in the camera themselves. There's a point where stuff just doesn't work anymore. Like the LCD screen on the back, for example, will just, once you hit minus 20, minus 30, you can't really say anything. It's
there's operational limits to what commercial grade cameras will work to. I mean, now I've started shooting with a DC connector too. When I shoot in the studio, I shoot with one of those dummy batteries with a cable in it, so I can just shoot with live view for the 2 or 3 hours that I'm. Normally I'll have to change like 2 batteries on the Lumix, but now I just plug it into the wall. I don't have to worry about changing batteries. It's a bit of a nuisance, but it still works.
I do the same thing. I mean, this is one of the big differences for me anyway between the Z6 II and the Z6 I, is the fact that you can run the Z6 II off of a USB cable.
Right.
And where that comes in super handy is when you do things like this. I'm filming myself with the Nikon Z6 II right now, and it's plugged into a USB thing, and so I don't have to worry about running out of battery or whatnot. When I'm producing a Camera Shake podcast episode, I don't have to worry. Anything where you film anything over for an extended period of time, there is one thing that you don't have to think about. It's just one little thing that you don't have to stress about. Because
it's the one less thing, but it's generally the biggest thing, because if you have no batteries, then you're pretty
exactly. Because I remember, like, when I used the D750 for the longest time, and it was like, okay, is the focus going to work? Because there was no iFocus. It was just that was hairy. So you set it to you set the focus to manual, and then you kind of go, okay, so if I'm here, I'll be in focus, but if I move forward, I won't be, so I'll have to make sure I'm here.
So you have to
It's
like
like
stay
those.
completely still.
Yeah,
Like
pretty
one of
much.
those
Yeah.
1800 setups with like a little paddle and just like your head, stop your head moving back and forward.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And of course, then you think, oh well, but what if I shoot at f8, for example? I have more depth of field. Yeah, but
More
then you need
depth, yeah.
you need tons more light. All of a sudden
Yeah.
now. Then so it just makes a big difference. And then the battery life was the other thing. And that's the other thing. Like the recording limit on the D750 was something like 26 minutes or 24 minutes or whatever
Yeah.
it was. So I had to set a timer, and every time. I used to say, you probably remember that because certainly the
I
first time
do.
you were on the show, I was doing that, and I'd be
Yeah, I
like,
do.
okay, so after 25 minutes, I'm just gonna have to restart the camera,
Yeah.
and then I cut it out afterwards, and nobody.
Was that a legal thing? Was it being able to record for less than 25 or 30 minutes? Was that a legal thing?
No, what I've heard is that if the problem was actually a tax-related issue, if the recording time was like infinite, for example, then you'd have to declare it as a video camera rather than a stills camera, and that would have
I
tax
see.
implications or
I
something.
see.
That's what I've heard. I don't know whether that's 100% correct or not, but that's just what I've heard.
No, it's a bit like back in the day when I was at college. The noise that an Apple Mac would make, it made a noise if you did like an error. And I think if you slowed it down, it would be some like so sume. So if you sped it up, it just sounded like a noise, but it said so sume. I think that was something to do with some other company having the name Apple or be able to play music. They want so sume. So when you actually do an error noise on the computer, it sounded like so sume. So, but yeah, I was always wondered what that limit was for, but that actually makes sense. A tax thing with video cameras and still cameras. So
it was something like that. And of course, this is the thing. This is actually one of the reasons why I decided to switch to Ecamm, which I now use to record the podcast itself, and it allows me to do these live streams quite easily, rather than using Zoom, which is what I used before that. Because now the camera isn't actually recording. I'm not recording on the camera at all. It's all recording straight to the hard drive. So immediately there's no recording limit anymore. The camera is literally just on.
Yeah, it's just a camera. Yeah, streaming through the camera.
Like a webcam, basically.
Yeah. Very expensive webcam.
Yeah. Yeah, very expensive. It does look better, though. It does look better.
Yeah, it does. It does compared to mine. Mine just looks like a 1996 mobile phone camera with color.
Like a flip phone.
8-bit.
Yeah. Oh, awesome. Guys, again, if you're, let us know where you're listening from or where you're watching from. If you're on YouTube or on Facebook, just put something in the comments so I know where you are when you're watching this, because again, that is always super interesting. But yeah. So Ecamm is one of those things. For those of you out there who know what Ecamm is, it's basically just a software that really allows you to connect things like cameras and microphones and stuff to your computer. And in the software, you can do lots of different things, like record a tutorial, for example, or you could record a podcast, or get other people. Other people can dial in and they can be on the same show like Sean is now. So it's and then you can tie that up with something. This episode, this live stream is not sponsored by Stream Deck, but I'm just saying you can use one of these things, and then you have different buttons, and if you press a button, there you go. It's only me, or it could only be Sean.
Fantastic.
Or it could be both of us together, or it could basically say, support us on buymeacoffee.com/CameraShake if you are watching the show. That'd be super awesome.
It's a good idea.
Coffee on there, yeah, 100%. It's a great idea.
It's a good idea.
It definitely is a good idea. The thing about those sort of things like Patreon and buymeacoffee.com, they really do help. It's amazing how just that little actually goes a long way. Buymeacoffee.com, for instance, you can support your favorite creative or your favorite podcast or something just by buying them a coffee. So you could support them with like $5, for example, or you could buy 2 coffees or whatever. But it could be as little as like 1 coffee essentially. But I think people often don't realize how much goes into making a podcast like this or a show like this, because there are always on costs. Like Ecamm isn't free. There's a subscription fee that needs to be paid, and
Right.
and obviously you got to host the podcast somewhere, so you got to pay for the hosting fee for that, and you got to have a website, you got to pay for that. So there's always like there's a lot of sort of on cost that goes into
Add-ons.
making some add-ons, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and that's always the thing. So it's always phenomenal when people show their support in that way. Absolutely love it, and it all goes straight back into the show, because it'll
Yeah,
literally
it just
pay for another
gets
month.
recycled into making more
Yeah,
content for the viewers. So
exactly. Yeah. So what have you got coming up in 2024? Have you got anything that you're looking forward to specifically?
I have a couple of weddings coming up. There's the bread and butter headshots, which is how I started basically with headshots, is shooting actors. But I think I'm sort of. I mean, I've been using like, as you know, LED lights now for what, 3-4 years now. It does give it a very cinematic look to how I shoot my headshots. I have experimented with some strobe. I've been using a Godot off-camera flash for location shoots where I'm not sure if I'm actually going to have any power outlets on the wall or anything. And it's surprising how fast you get out of using strobes. I mean, my ISO, I'm shooting indoors for LEDs, is like ISO 400. But then when you go outside, then you forget to change it, and then you start using strobe, then everything's blown out. Then you have to sort of put your brain back into a situation that you were like 5-6 years ago, where you had to put everything like shoot at ISO 100, a shutter speed no more than 200ths of a second, unless you get the black band going across the bottom of the screen. So I would like to try and implement both using LED for the headshots, and I think I just want to get better at using off-camera flash outside. I mean, I shot.
Right.
I posted on my Instagram. I'm not sure if you've seen it. There's a picture of a girl, blonde-haired girl, standing against a concrete wall with green leaves.
Mm-hmm.
And I processed some
Yes.
the other night there, and that was all shot with was it a 28 centimeter softbox off-camera flash, and I actually had the flash coming in the same direction as the sun. I said, this is not going to be strong enough to overpower the sun. It was like midday sun. It was pretty much vertical. I was like, this is going to look terrible. And I took it, and I tried not to look so surprised, but actually it turned a lot better than I thought. So I was like, yeah, that's what I meant to do, obviously.
So which strobe were you using for this? The Godox 80. Which one?
860 Mark II, I think it is.
Ah, right. Okay.
I think it actually comes with its own like square like battery. It doesn't use pencil batteries, so it is more powerful. It does have high speed sync, which I haven't figured out yet totally, but thankfully, especially during the winter, it starts getting dark around here about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. But I want to be able to sort of master the high sync speed, so I can make use of it.
Let me give you some advice there, because I actually recorded a video talking about exactly that over on
Oh,
the Platypod
fantastic.
YouTube channel. Yeah. So, some people might know I create tutorial videos for Platypod on the Platypod YouTube channel. And one of the issues I made a video about was high-speed flash. So, high-speed sync.
High speed sync, yeah.
This must be the rum and coke that's doing that to me.
It's either too much or not enough.
Yeah, exactly right. So I did a video on that where I took my Vespa out. Onto
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
So I created some selfies on a Vespa, and so the idea was that was high speed sync.
Really
so
good.
That's the thing. I also did another thing actually. This might be interesting for you. Let me just grab this thing 1 second. Oops. Okay, so I don't know if you can see this. It's on at the moment. Let's turn this off. So I made a video. See these little LED panels, right? So this is like it's a Lume Cube panel pro. It's like a little LED light. Hey, there you go. Okay, cool. So here's the thing. So somebody said to me a little while ago, it's like, oh yeah, these LED panels are great, but you can never do like professional grade headshots with these.
Yeah.
And I immediately thought, or can you? And so I used 3 of those in different configurations. So I came up with 3 different lighting ideas to actually create professional grade headshots with 3 of these LED panels. And I have to say, I'll be honest with you, I didn't know what the end result's going to be like, but I was actually really surprised on how good those shots
Yeah.
came out. And if you think about that, so 3 of these panels, look at how slim they are. I mean,
Yeah.
you can fit your entire headshot studio into your backpack with 3 of these. Just imagine that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Isn't that nuts?
I mean, the
So,
light source itself is bigger light source than a flash. So, you have 3 of those side by side, or I think mine's magnetic. So if you get a few clips or whatever, you can stack them all together. So you actually have a decent size.
Exactly. And what you can do is, with these, so it's, I don't see it, but basically it sits on this gooseneck, right? So this is,
All right.
there's a little platypod ultra you can sit up, but basically they sit on this gooseneck. And so you've got another, whatever,
Yeah.
like small little connector here. So you can connect. So what I did was I created the ring of fire is what I call it. So it's like a semicircular contraption consisting of 3 of these LumeCube Pros, Panel Pros connected with goosenecks. And I set the model basically in the middle of it. And what you get is literally this sort of Peter Hurley style lighting, okay, with these Panel Pros. And the cool thing with these is that you can use the app to control each one of those individually. So you can actually set different levels depending on whether you want a little bit more shade on the left or on the right side or whatever, right? And the end result, I mean, I was like, this is.
I'd like to see one of those portraits. That'd be quite good to see one of those.
I'll send you some over. It's again, I
Yeah,
made a
that'd
video
be
about
good.
this.
Be good to see. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, if you head over, I tell you what, if you head over to Platypod, well, actually not now. Obviously, if you're listening or if you're watching on YouTube, don't do that now. Go over to the Platypod channel after we finished. We're gonna be another few minutes, but yeah. So there's I shot Barbie, a Barbie model basically. I did some headshots for her using those Panel Pros, and I have to say, it's the end results were quite. Yeah, I was surprised. I didn't.
Yeah.
I thought from the outset, I thought I could do it. I'd come up with something that's possible. I wasn't really quite prepared on how good the results would actually be. So it's definitely one of these things. I think. Is it like practical all the time? No, it's not.
No.
There are advantages to shooting with a massive, with a bigger softbox or whatever. And I like shooting with strobes as well. I really like strobes. But I've been working a lot with LEDs recently for all sorts of different things, whether it's actually in this particular instance for headshots, but also for like scale model lighting and stuff like that. So more like commercial lighting, especially with small subjects. These LED panels are phenomenal.
Right.
And if you're not used to using constant light, like me, I really wasn't. I mean, I really, I've been using strobes for a very long time. I'm comfortable using strobes.
Yeah.
And going down to like a 60th of a second shutter speed made me very nervous. Very, very nervous.
The slightest movement, you get a blur going on.
Yeah, exactly. So, there's that. But, broadly speaking, it's actually fine. Now, once you get used to it, it's great. What is great is that you can shape the light and you can, it's also from a
get what you
demonstration.
see.
Yeah, you get what you see. And actually, when you're teaching lighting, it's one thing that I've found, especially with, creating tutorials when it comes to scale models and stuff like that. It's, it's so much easier when the viewer can see where the light falls. It makes more sense. It's just that you move the light source a little bit, and then so I have a couple of Lume cubes as well. There's these little cuboid little lights, and you can get some accessories for that. But I basically made a snoot out of a cardboard roll, like a toilet roll type of a thing, and
Yeah,
then you move it around, you can immediately see how it affects the background and stuff like that. That's a lot to be said for that,
yeah,
for sure.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know if I would switch entirely to LEDs for portraits or headshots. Personally, at this point,
Yeah,
I'm just too comfortable using strobes. I just,
yeah, you're in your comfort zone with strobes. I mean, I think for me, when I started off, I had strobes that were from Amazon. I think basically the stuff that I had was unbranded. The flash trigger was like you'd shoot 10 shots, you'd only shoot 6 out of 10 times. So for me, it was a
yeah,
reliable.
I know exactly what you're talking
Yeah.
about. That's exactly where I started.
So,
Amazon.
but I think I originally started off with like one of these like daylight bulbs that's like a twist, like a curly type twist type thing.
Yes. Yeah.
I think it was like a 50 or 100 watt bulb with a shoot through umbrella, cheap stand off Amazon. Again, it was a case of I'm not too sure if I want to use strobes. I'm not going to spend £200 or £300 on a strobe to realize that I don't like it. I much prefer LED. I did the same thing with LED. I got my first LED lamp. It was only a 60 watt, and I figured out that I just liked the shallow depth of field that I got without having to use an ND filter to be able to shoot at 1.4 without having to use a filter. So I could shoot at 1.4 or 1.8, whatever it was, and just dial down the power of the lamp and get exactly what I wanted. So for me, as comfortable as you are with strobe, I'm as comfortable with LED. But at the same time, I don't want to forget the little I have learned with strobe, because the times that I do need it is it's very important times, and I don't want to screw that up at all.
So I mean, that's the thing. I'd say, in my experience, if you're shooting with constant light, especially with LEDs and stuff, like if you're in a place where you can control any ambient light, like let's say you're in a place where you can darken the room down quite a lot, then they work really very well. If you're in a place like my shooting space here, where I have a skylight that's difficult to control, and it's difficult to darken. Right now, it's not a problem because it's winter. It's dark outside, so it is pitch black over there. But in the summer, it's a nightmare. So I need to.
It's horrible.
I need to artificially control the light by with shutter speed. So strobes are perfect for that. And it's just it always depends on your situation and what works well. And of course, on location, I have to say, I mean, for me, that's always the choice. On location is to use strobes outside.
But do you have do you have an issue when you use strobe or LED? One of the reasons why I do like LED is the pupil of the eye doesn't dilate. Like with the shooting with strobe, the eye goes really black, and they've got like very interesting color eyes, like green or like a golden brown. That sort of, it's just like a very thin line that you see. Because you shoot strobe, the pupil really goes black, but with LED, it reduces the pupil, makes it a bit smaller.
Correct. So there's just two things I would say to that. I agree with you 100%. You're absolutely right. And there's a lot to be said for seeing a lot of color in the eye. Why not? Why wouldn't you? If somebody's got beautiful eyes, you want to see the color. There's two things. One is, again, if you are in a surrounding that's relatively dark, then of course just using the modeling light will basically give you a similar effect, because that model will be under light the whole time. Right?
Yeah.
The other thing, of course, is that so there is one way of thinking that basically says, wide open pupils show a form of attraction of the subject, right? So we know that when people look at each other, they like each other or in love with each other.
Their eyes dilate,
the eyes dilate. So there is, of course, that way of thinking, of saying like, well, maybe that will make that subject more attractive to the viewer, because that's what's happening in the eye. So you can basically look at it from different points of view.
Perspectives,
but I agree, and there's sort of a valid thing in any of those. But of course, and then again, it just comes down to personal preference.
Exactly. Exactly.
And you're absolutely right. So But again, in Portrait Pro, make the pupil smaller. Really?
You can do that.
Yeah, there's a slider for that.
Oh my god. Yeah, I mean, some of the slides you get is like, make the left eye bigger. You sort of like scroll it back and forward really quickly. I go like really, really big and really small at the same time.
I tell you what, I had a client. This goes back a little while. It's probably maybe I think the beginning of COVID, or maybe just around about that time. But I remember I had a client, a headshot client, and a really good-looking lady, really good, very very pretty lady. I think I can't remember. She's from Israel, maybe. I can't remember, but very good-looking lady. And the images were great. I mean, she looked really great on camera. And then she goes, "Oh, but one of my eyes is bigger than the other. Can you fix that in Photoshop?" And I'm looking at the image. I'm like, really? I mean, yeah. If you look really hard, then okay. But
Yeah.
I was working. By that point, I'd been working with her for like a couple of hours, and I hadn't noticed. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But of course, then the question then is, okay, well, if it's really that disturbing to the client, then are you going to keep the client happy? And you just basically go, okay, if that's what you want and it makes you happy, then okay,
Yeah.
Personally, I didn't personally think it would have been that noticeable. But
No.
as you say, in Photoshop, I'm saying, in Photoshop, it's very easy to just to just increase.
But that's the thing. I come across that a lot myself as well with clients. They'll either say, "Oh, my ears are too big," or "My head's too small," or "Chin's too small," whatever it is. And I said, if you hadn't have told me, I wouldn't have noticed it. And if you're getting called forward for auditions, the people like what they see in the photograph. Exactly what they see is what they get is what they like. So they see what you look like one-to-one in a picture. They want to see what comes through the door is exactly the same as the picture. But it's a thing. Have you heard the FedEx logo?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, it's and I use that quite a lot as an example. And it is literally. Where is it? Yeah, there's an arrow. You can't really see it that well. Well, anyway, there's an arrow between the E and the X. Yeah. And I'll say, can you point the arrow in this logo? And what people are saying, some people will get it straight away. Some people will struggle to see it. And I said, you struggle to see that is what people don't see, that your left eye is bigger than your right eye. So if they can't see it, no one else is going to see it, and not unless you point it out to them. So
it's a similar thing with the Amazon smiley face. I think that's another example for exactly.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, it's a case of I sort of tell these people, don't point out your weaknesses to people, because then they're going to see it as well. Oh yeah, that's right. Your eye is smaller than that one there. So
yeah, exactly.
So yeah, but again, if they're getting called forward for auditions on the strength of the headshot, they like what they see. So it doesn't make a difference. I mean, it is sort of personal preference. I mean, they sort of see themselves 24/7. Look in the mirror. I mean, everyone's left eye or right eye is a tiny bit smaller than the other anyway. Yeah. So,
and I think every single person has this one thing where they look at themselves and they kind of go, "Oh, well, I don't like this particular aspect of myself," and
exactly.
That's pretty normal.
I've had people asking to remove wrinkles and stuff like that. No, they stay there.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Okay, Sean, we've reached 8:15, so
yes.
We've come to the end of the live stream today. There's loads and loads of stuff happening, obviously, in 2024. I'm very, very sure that we're going to have you back on the show in the not too distant future.
Look forward to it.
Some ideas that I have. Yeah, so this is Camera Shake Podcast signing off for 2023. Wishing everybody a awesome and happy new year of 2024. We're going to be back as always on Thursday. Why wouldn't we? With some more awesome episodes. Sean, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the live stream.
Likewise.
We'll do that more often, because I really quite enjoy the live streaming.
Yeah, it's good. Likewise. I'm going to try and figure out, get my camera linked up, so I'm not using the camera. So yeah, perfect.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Take care. Have a great new
Again,
year.
guys, everybody, everybody who's been watching on Facebook or on YouTube, thank you so much for sticking with us. And again, tune back in next Thursday. There we go. Let me just press the right button, and here we go.